Good afternoon. Will the Standing Committee on Crown Corporations please come to order? Before the committee can proceed with the business before it, it must elect a chairperson. Are there any nominations? Mr. Loisel?
I nominate Emily Brar.
Emily Brar has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, Mr. Brar, will you please take to the chair?
Good afternoon, everybody. Our next item of business is the election of a vice chairperson. Are there any nominations? Emily Compton.
I nominate Emily Loisel.
Emily Loisel has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, Emily Loisel is elected vice chairperson. This meeting has been called to consider the annual report of the Manitoba Centennial Centre Corporation for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2024. At this time, I would like to remind everyone that questions and comments must be put through the chair using third person as opposed to directly to members and representatives. Are there any suggestions from the committee to how long we should sit this afternoon? Emily Compton? 2 hours. 2 hours. Emily Prashad?
I would suggest 3 hours. I think that the number of questions that I have, we can certainly probably get through that at a rapid rate if the answers are directed, but based on the amount of questions we currently have, I'd be seeking 3 hours.
Do we agree to 2 hours or 3 hours? 2.5. Sorry. Emily Compton.
How about 2.5 hours?
Emily Prashad.
Thank you. Let's do that. I think we can accomplish a lot in that period of time.
So the committee would be sitting for 2.5 hours.
Is that agreed?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
It has been suggested that the committee sits for 2.5 hours. Agreed? Agreed and so ordered. Does the Honourable Minister wish to make an opening statement?
I do.
Okay, Minister Kennedy.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here today as Minister of Sport, Culture, Heritage and Tourism with senior officials from the Manitoba Centennial Centre Corporation to present the corporation's 2023-24 annual report for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2024. I would like to take the opportunity to introduce Alan Goodard, recently appointed as the Chair of the Board of Directors, and Rob Olson, Chief Executive Officer. Also joining us today here are Deputy Minister Jeff Hanachuk and Assistant Deputy Minister Veronica Dick. The Manitoba Centennial Centre plays a central role in supporting access to arts and culture in Manitoba. The Centennial Cultural Campus is home to our largest and most renowned performing arts and heritage organizations. As Sport, Culture, Heritage and Tourism's new minister, I have been pleased to witness how much MCCC's facilities, programming, and partnerships with resident tenants make essential contributions to the cultural life and experiences for all Manitobans. The arts are bouncing back after 5 years of a PC government that cut funding to MCCC and did nothing to support Manitoba's rich arts and culture through a pandemic that put our arts and cultural sector at risk. That's why I was proud when our government announced we'd be increasing funding to MCCC by $500,000 for the first time in years, a more than 20% increase. This increased support will allow the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, the Manitoba Opera, the Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre, and many other performing arts groups to thrive here at home once again. Today provides an important opportunity to share some of the successes and achievements of MCCC over the past year, and to continuing our work with this Crown Corporation to enhance their contributions in the years to come. Thank you to everyone, and I look forward to our discussions.
Thank you, Minister. Does the critic for the official opposition have an opening statement?
I do.
Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to thank the CEO, the board, and all the employees working within MCCC organization for the hard work that they do to advance the arts and the culture in Manitoba. It is those little breaks that people get in their lives to rejuvenate themselves, to do that mental health check, to build their spirits. I myself have fond memories of being at many events, going back to a young fellow in grade 5 seeing Roy Orbison play at the Centennial Concert Hall. The work that goes on behind the scenes that we don't know will never be reflected in what we're seeing here today. So that I truly thank you. From the people that we meet at the ticket takers at the door, greeting you, or the people helping you find your seats, the first-class events that are put on all the time. And without getting any political statements, I just want to say thank you very much for being here today, and I look forward to having some more questions answered.
Thank you, MLA Prashad. Do the representatives from Manitoba Centennial Centre Corporation wish to make an opening statement?
For me, I'd just like to express my gratitude.
Mr. Goddard.
Thank you so much. For me, I'd just like to express my gratitude to be a part of these proceedings and the honor of sitting as board chair of an incredible organization with almost 60-year history supporting the arts, both performing, heritage, cultural, in Manitoba, across Manitoba, and specifically in Winnipeg as well. So thank you, and thank you for this opportunity. Robert.
Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Brar. If I may, as I've done in previous standing committee meetings, I use this opportunity to provide a little bit of history of the corporation. We're one of Manitoba's oldest Crown corporations, established in the early 60s as a development agency. And I do really value this opportunity to talk about our organization, because I think sometimes it's not that well known in the broader spectrum of Crown corporations. We're governed by the same act that governs many of our other sister agencies, and sometimes it's incumbent upon us to talk about it and just elevate the profile a little bit. So in the early 60s, we developed the Centennial Centre for the Arts. In the late 60s, we became that agency that administered the assets that were developed by our corporation. And since then, we've enjoyed a positive relationship with sport, culture, heritage, or whomever we've reported to at that time, because our goal truly is, and something that we buy into, we're dedicated to supporting the arts, and we use the assets of the Centennial Centre to advance the arts in Manitoba, and we use that holistic approach to doing so by earning revenue on our own, supplementing that with some support we get from our departments and our various agencies. So we're very pleased with the work we've done in the last 60, 65 years. It's not to suggest there isn't more work to be done, there always is. But these are opportunities that we look forward to talk about our annual report, talk about what we've accomplished and where we've been. And, hopefully you'll be kind to us and we'll have good positive answers for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you both, Mr. Olson and Mr. Goddard. The floor is now open for questions. MLA Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. In response to that, being kind, the MCCC does a lot of great work. This committee is what I consider a feel-good committee. It does so much beyond, like I said, we'll get into the weeds of this today. The role here today is not to cast aspersions on anybody or anything. It's just to find out more information as to where government should help, where some of the successes in the past, and where we're moving forward. I was very pleased to see under the revenue stream that MCCC has reported an operational surplus of $113,000 for the fiscal year ending in 2024. I would hope that the CEO or the management team can answer if they can anticipate that this is something that is sustainable moving forward.
Certainly.
Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. Certainly, that's our goal. I think one of the objectives of our mandate and our act is to be revenue neutral. In other words, we balance our books as best as we can through our budgeting process. The surpluses, or sometimes the deficits, but mostly surpluses in the last little while, has been a product of due diligence on our part. Earning revenue is a critical element to our operations, but also maintaining costs and being responsible with our costing, with the expenses that we incur, with the revenues that we have. I think it's been a critical element of our organization over the last few years. We've been managing our expenses very well. The cyclical nature of the entertainment industry goes up and down as we go out through the year. We might anticipate various performances on the stage of the concert hall or within our movie production studio. But as you might be able to see in our annual report, we couldn't anticipate last year that there would be a writer's strike in the United States. And so the writer's strike did impact revenue coming from our movie production studio. But to answer your question, we always attempt to provide a balanced budget to government for consideration, and then we do our due diligence to try to maximize revenue and maintain our operational costs.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. MLA Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Last year during committee, it was mentioned that the inflationary pressures are rapidly overtaking MCCC's ability to sustain itself with earned revenue. I've got several different questions on here to different departments. To the CEO, I would like to ask through the chair, is this still an increasing concern? Have you seen any progress on that front? Also, in November, the province said it's increasing CCC's funding by $500,000. Is that increase enough to help address increasing inflationary pressures? And I would like to see if the minister would be able to answer if the minister would be able to commit to more operational funding increases into the future.
Honorable Minister.
So how about we let Mr. Olson answer the first part, and then I will go to the next.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Olson.
Thank you. Well, we are very pleased to have received the additional $500,000 that we did this year. It went a long way to addressing some longstanding issues that we've had. We've been able to manage, as I alluded to before, through operating revenues and managing our costs as best as possible to provide these surpluses. But it was becoming increasingly difficult with inflationary factors running away on us. And I won't go into detail about what some of those inflationary costs can be. Some of them are well documented. But yes, it was starting to catch up on us and was going to be a little bit more difficult for us going forward. So we are very grateful. This $500,000 that we received this year will help maintain a balanced budget again this year, is our anticipation, with potentially a small surplus again this year. But we are at that point where it's like most organizations, becoming increasingly difficult to manage these rapidly increasing inflationary pressures.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Minister Kennedy.
So in response to the question by the member with regards to the increase and whether or not the government will commit to more, what I will say is, as you had stated, last year our government announced $500,000 of an increase. That's a substantial amount of money to the Manitoba Centennial Centre Corporation's annual funding. That's more than a 20% increase. So this historic investment supports the incredible work of the tenants of Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, the Manitoba Opera, the Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre, and many other performing arts groups in Manitoba. So, you know, there's no way around this. We saw the way the previous government ignored Manitoba's arts and cultural community. In 2018, the PC slashed the budget by $500,000, and our government, you know, during the pandemic, there were arts groups that struggled, and the government, the PC government, never restored that funding, and that put the symphony and the opera and theater groups at risk. So we're really incredibly proud of this. We've stepped in to restore this critical funding and to help the arts community thrive once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. MLA Prashad.
I'd like to thank the minister for the answer. To the CEO or chair, I'd like to direct this question. In the 2024 fiscal year, a new 3-year strategic business plan for 23 to 26 was developed to help creatively increase revenue and make needed investments. Can you expand more on the plan and what is the next steps of MCCC for implementing this plan?
Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. I can, and I'd be happy to. So we developed a 3-year strategic plan last year. I think it'll come to a conclusion in 2026. We established what we categorize as 4 pillars of the plan, which is launching a charitable foundation, which we have now accomplished, investing in the redevelopment of the Centennial Centre, developing a comprehensive programming strategy, and communicating the mandate and objectives of MCCC. So as I suggested, the first priority of our plan has been completed. The next one is developing the Centennial Centre to modernize the assets of the Centennial Centre. That's an ongoing struggle for a 65-year-old facility. Finding the right dollar amount to invest in the facility, to maintain it, to at least ensure that we can deliver the program that we have to deliver every year is a floating target. We are seeing investment, but I will tell you, as the CEO of a particular organization, it's probably never enough. I don't think that it can ever be enough, but it is progressing. We are seeing some investment, and we're focusing that investment in critical areas where we think needs to be focused. Developing a programming strategy, to your point, Mr. Prashad, is that we are trying to find ways to maximize our abilities to generate revenues. So self-generated revenue. So we're looking at programming options. We've taken a little bit more risk over the past few years where we are actually buying entertainment, hosting entertainment on the concert hall stage, and then taking a bit of a risk that show, if you will sell, and that will recover enough revenue off the sale of tickets and some of the other supplementary sources of revenue to cover the cost of those entertainers. And we are looking, and we have been successful. We have been successful at doing that, but there's more to be done in that area. We're also looking at working with the local communities to try to bring programming to the stage that I think reflects our intention to work with our Indigenous First Nations communities, with some of our new Canadians to bring more programming to the stage. Some of that investment may not necessarily reflect an immediate profit on those investments, but it does have, I think, an overall broader objective, which is to advance the arts in all art forms with all organizations and cultures. And so we are attempting to work towards that objective as well too. And lastly, our last pillar of our strategic plan is just what I led off with earlier. We are one of the oldest crown corporations in the province. We're probably the least known. And so we're trying to do a little bit to elevate our profile in the community and let people understand that we have a specific mandate to support arts and culture. And that's what our objective is going to be.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Mr. Olson for that response. Those 4 pillars, they make tremendous sense to move forward in this market space. I'd like to see if we can expand more on what that new charitable foundation looks like and how it will operate.
Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sure. So we're quite excited about this, but I want to be clear that the establishment of a charitable foundation now is an independent organization from the Crown. What we did is there's a board of governors that is directing that foundation. They are in the process of recruiting an executive director. The objective of the establishment of that arts center was to bring a charitable element to the arts with a specific focus on investing in the Centennial Center and other assets in the province that might benefit from facilities like ours to support arts communities. So the Arts Center has a mandate and a goal to raise revenue, if you will, raise money if you can, through charitable ventures, to then redirect to the Centennial Center for infrastructure, for equipment, for programming that might be specific to some of the aforementioned agencies, Indigenous agencies, newcomers to Manitoba. Their focus as a charitable organization will be to support the arts and support the Centennial Center. I liken it to the way we've set up, or they've set up charitable organizations that support the health centers, Health Sciences Center Foundation, St. Boniface Foundations. Those foundations have a particular mandate to support health. This foundation is going to have a mandate to support arts organizations.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Mr. Olson, thank you once again for that direct answer. I think that's very important that the charitable organization is up and running and can bring the funds that we desperately need into MCCC. Do you have is there an expectation on what this charitable foundation should bring monetarily on an annual basis? Is there a goal set out? And when can we expect some funds to start rolling in?
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's no specific target as of yet. As I said, they're in the process of trying to hire an executive director, which will lead that fundraising strategy. So there is no definitive target right now that I can share with anybody. I think they're trying to find their way right now with some of the hurdles that had to be jumped over with Revenue Canada, with CRA, and establishing this foundation. They've just put most of those to bed, and now the process of hiring an executive director will lead them to that next chapter of figuring out what do they think they can reasonably raise on an annual basis or through a specific campaign.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Again, that's some great information, and time will tell. It's just the groundwork is just getting going, and so the trees are just planted, and hopefully they can bear fruit fairly quick. Just trying to see if there's any particular capital projects or programs that is currently being seen as an immediate funding priority for this foundation once it's fully operational.
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Mr. Olson.
Mr. Chair, well, you know, if I wanted to be specific, I mean, we've talked about some of the capital deficiencies within the Centennial Center, and I categorize it as the Centennial Center because it's not strictly focused on the concert hall. We're talking about all 750,000 square feet that make up the Centennial Center for the Arts. But things that we've discussed in the past are new seating for the auditoriums, all of them. Planetarium auditorium. There's a secondary 230-seat theater that is actually on the north side of the complex, all 2,300 seats of the concert hall. Those types of investments that it's difficult to find the capital to make those million-dollar investments to replace the seats. We think, as our predecessor did in the early 60s, we think we can run a capital campaign. We think they, can run a capital campaign to replace the seats, possibly like they did before, where you sell the naming rights to a particular seat and you get your plaque on the seat, and they can potentially raise some money. Whether they can raise all of the several $1 million it will take to replace all those seats is to be discussed, depending on their how successful their campaign is. But that would be one area that they would be looking at going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Mr. Olson, thank you. I can imagine that the undertaking of replacing seating is it's not just a weekend project. Certainly you're spending a long time, many months or even years on that. The 2024 fiscal year saw a significant capital investment, total investment of $736,000 in capital assets. Can we touch base on some of the projects completed or work that was worked on in the fiscal year of 2024 and how these investments will improve visitor experiences?
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Mr. Olson. Mr. Olson.
If I may, if I can touch base on it, it's on our annual report. Yes, there was an investment last year in some capital investment, as there is every year. We have a standing agreement with our partners in what was then Consumer Protection, I've got to get the title right. It's now known as Public Service Delivery. So that's the new name of government services. We work with them annually. They allow us on an annual basis to plan for about $440,000 worth of what we'd call Part B capital. But of course, as we talk about what could be invested, and they ultimately provide approval on those investments, there are other things that crop up throughout the course of the year, a broken pipe here, leaky roof that requires some supplemental funding to come along. And they've been very good at addressing what they might call urgent needs versus planned needs. But every year we do have we have access to what they call 440 of Part B capital. Last year they allowed us to, through some of the projects that we undertook, to spend about $825,000 worth of what they would consider Part B capital. And I think I highlighted some of them, stage rigging, lighting upgrades, window stabilization at Art Space, one of the properties that we have a vested interest in. Art Space is the building just across the street on Main Street from us. Security camera upgrade was a major investment in the last year. Plant boilers, some mundane stuff that has to be replaced, but it's expensive. Boilers and boiler controllers and things like that that power the entire center up is where much of that investment went to. And then we did some things on our own where we upgraded our computer network to manage some of the risks that are associated with cyber attacks, so we could prevent ourselves from easily being hacked. I won't say it's impossible, or I won't say it's likely it will never be, but we've done what we could to mitigate that. And again, concession equipment, things of that nature that are critical to the operations of the Centennial Center, more specifically to the concert hall, is where we focus some of our money. Yes, it was around $700 and some thousand in total over the course of the year. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Honorable Minister Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanting to bring things back around to the annual report, which is what we're here to discuss for the 2023-2024 period ending March 31st. So if I could encourage questions to be regarding specifics in the annual report, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. To the Minister, I believe that I was speaking directly to the $736,000 that was in the capital assets for the fiscal year of 2024. But barring that, page 4 of the report, the second pillar of the new strategic plan is to redevelop a state-of-the-art Centennial Center. The report mentions that the Centennial campus will require a multi-million-dollar investment to return the complex to its intended standard. Can we expand a little bit on the kind of projects we're looking to redevelop and revive the campus?
Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'd be happy to address that. So we've undertaken with our partners in PSD what we call a building condition assessment report. So it's essentially a complete evaluation of the infrastructure of the Centennial Center. And as just to remind the opposition, the Centennial Center is multiple buildings. It's Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre, the Warehouse Theatre, some warehouse space, all the Centennial Center proper, which is the Concert Hall, Planetarium Museum, a movie production studio, and the aforementioned art space. So the building condition assessment is a comprehensive analysis of the capital requirements of the facility. We are working off of that report to prioritize specific investment in the most needed areas of the Centennial Center, and we continue to work with our partners at PSD on identifying those critical areas. Reports do go back and forth from time to time that might change the urgency depending on what's failing at the moment, but there is a comprehensive plan, or there is a plan in place it's a 25, 30-year plan to tackle what is a rather significant a required investment in the Centennial Centre going forward. So there is a strategy in place. I don't want to get ahead of what may or may not come down the pipe, but I just want Mr. Pershot to recognize that we are diligently working on that plan going forward and how to implement it and where's the best way to invest the dollars that we do have.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Pershot.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Mr. Olson, thank you for that. Obviously, 60 years of experience lets you know that proactive planning is much better than reactive planning. I'd like to see an answer from the ministers if the provincial government is prepared to commit to help fund these capital investments that are required more urgently than others.
Thank you, Mr. Pershot. Just a gentle reminder to all members that the questions and answers should be done through the chair. Honorable Minister.
I'm just going to confer for a moment.
Minister Kennedy.
So with regards to funding and with the Manitoba Centennial Centre Corporation, I think it's important to note that my department's working really closely with the Department of Public Service Delivery to support the long-term sustainability of the MCCC and the other facilities. Pardon me. We know the important role that the facilities play as a performance venue and as the home to some of the largest and the most renowned arts and heritage organizations in Manitoba. So we recognize the vital role that the arts play in the lives of Manitobans through the visual and music and dance and other forms. The arts brings Manitobans together, and it really helps us define who we are as one Manitoba. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Pershot.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. We're getting some great answers here today, so I want to thank everybody for attending and getting down to the meat of what we're looking at here. We know that parking is notoriously difficult anywhere you go in downtown Winnipeg. Presumably parking around Centennial Centre is no different, and attending there myself, I can tell you sometimes it's very difficult, especially with the public safety building parkade now demolished. Can we elaborate a little bit more on what is required for parking and how this has impacted the MCCC's revenue stream?
Thank you, Mr. Pershot. Mr. Goddard.
I'd be happy to attempt to answer this. Thank you, Mr. Barr. Given the relationship we have with our resident tenants or partners, the importance of serving the community, especially those that rely on automobiles to attend the conferences and the events and whatnot, there has long been a recognition by all that parking is a priority and the development of parking is a priority. In fact, going so far back as 2016, a joint effort was brought together to create a master plan around the redevelopment of aspects of the campus. One of the first priorities was the parking lot on Rupert Avenue. And while at the time, the then government was not able to provide the capital required to redevelop that surface lot into like a potential multi-use parkade, this year we've taken the opportunity to revisit that without commitment, but to revisit it and to look at that as and parking associated with that as a priority for our board to look at and to review. So definitely recognized as a priority, something we are looking at internally with the board, with our partners, and of course, again, with support from the minister responsible. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Mr. Goddard for that answer. Parking is definitely an issue everywhere you go, so I'm glad that MCCC has put that on the focus of the radar to try to move forward, and hopefully we can get some great parking around that area. Do you want to talk a little bit about the museum lease? MCCC was recently in discussions with the Manitoba Museum on a new leasing agreement. What can we expect from this revised agreement? The report mentioned that it's anticipated in the first half of the fiscal year 24-25.
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Mr. Olson.
Just that, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we've initiated discussions with the Manitoba Museum. For the sake of this committee, there are 3 organizations that we have long-term 99-year leases, quite frankly, divided into 33-year terms for the use of space, for the lease of space within the Centennial Centre. The Manitoba Museum is one of those organizations that has a long-standing commitment to lease space from the Centennial Centre, from the Centennial Centre Corporation, to achieve the goals and the mandate that they've been given. The redevelopment of the next 33-year plan is just looking to update the language. If you can appreciate, back in 1985, when this lease was first established, there's a lot of terminology that does not apply to today's standards, to today's lease agreements, to the conditions, the environment that we work in today. So we're really looking to upgrade that language. There is no, and I can say this in front of the committee, there's no intent to have the museum to relocate, to move into other spaces. It's really about updating the language, providing some clear expectations on the deliverables, because MCCC delivers services to the museum that they count on for their operations. We want to make sure that there's some clear understanding of what those deliverables are, so that there is no miscommunication or expectation beyond what is in the actual agreement going forward. So it's really about cleaning up language and cleaning up expectations.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I want to talk about accessibility for people to enter the facilities. We talked a little bit about the parking, but the physical accessibility, what investments have been made over the past year to improve accessibility to any or all of the facilities under MCCC?
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Mr. Olson.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And thank you for that question. It is a very important question to us. We have made improvements to the accessibility of the Centennial Centre in small increments. We recognize there's some more to do, but it's one of our priorities in any project that we're developing in the future is to make sure the building is as inclusive as possible. It takes money and time, and so some of that progress might not seem obvious, but we are, with every project that we undertake, we are ensuring that there is a development of accessibility built within the scope of the project itself, so we can make those changes and make those improvements step by step. As you can appreciate, sorry, just to finish off, 65-year-old building, there is non-compliance in many areas, but we are making progress on making it a more exclusive complex.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. To all the committee members, very respectfully, I wanted to confirm that I'm pronouncing all the names, last names properly. If not, feel free to correct me. Mr. Prashad.
Perfect job on my name. I want to talk a little bit about art space. It's an area I didn't really know too much about until it recently hit the news the past week, and this is one of those unforeseeable events that happen. It could happen personally in your home or anywhere else where there's some type of situation arises that you have to address. Now, we know that it's been reported that currently there's over $10,000 in ticket sales that have been lost from the temporary closure. I'd like to see if we have an idea on how soon the art space can get repaired and what would be the cost of that repair moving forward.
Minister Kennedy.
Just going to take a moment.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. So in response to the question with regards to the art space, we know that there's been a break in the sewer pipe, and it's a very serious issue for art space and its tenants. But I was very pleased to hear that the Manitoba Centennial Centre Corporation is working with the Manitoba Public Service Delivery, and they're going to be repairing and completing that as soon as possible. Also, I'd like to say that I was very pleased, but really not surprised, to learn that some of our city's cultural organizations have stepped up to offer space to the art space tenants. Manitoba's cultural community is always there to support and to really take care of the people around them with regards to crises. So in summation, I would say that, of course, we are assessing, and this is ongoing. And we're obviously very committed to ensuring the repairs occur so that art space has the ability to continue doing the great work that they do.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and I'd like to thank the Minister for that answer. It is very important that we recognize the importance of the other cultural centers that we have for stepping forward and offering space. I was just curious if MCCC has a contingency plan for dealing with events like this in the event of some unforeseeable situation, that there is space available somewhere else, whether it be in other cultural centers or another building under MCCC's facility.
Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, to answer your question, there is additional space from which we've had discussions with the Executive Director of Art Space. The Centennial Center is one of those spaces where, if need be, some of those organizations could reside in a temporary basis until the repair is done. They have gone to other art organizations in the community, probably a little bit more closer to their facility, and they've been generously offered space within those other buildings, private buildings, not necessarily public buildings, to temporarily reside until this work is being done. And it is an ongoing project. It's active right now. We just don't have a timeline on the repairs itself. It's if I might say, it's a big job.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Prashad.
I can understand that the repair is a little bit of a fluid situation right now, and different things will come out of the requirement as progress is made, and it makes you proud to be a Manitoban to recognize that the other organizations are stepping forward. I would like to see if the Minister's Department can answer this question, where ArtSpace has said that, by its own director, said that 20 million is needed to cover the cost of repairs to that location. Is there a commitment from this minister or minister's department to cover a portion of that? And if so, what is the amount?
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Minister Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. So what I would say is that with regards to funding requests, any capital requirements or requests that come through, our department really works in conjunction with our partners with the public service delivery when we require or receive any requests for capital projects. What I will say, though, is I recognize that this is an important issue. It's an ongoing situation that's unfolding right now for ArtSpace. But I would gently ask that we come back to the annual report because this is an ongoing issue, but we're really here to talk about the annual report for 2023-24. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and I would echo that we should be focusing on the theme of the day, which is annual report for MCCC. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The report does directly mention their investment into ArtSpace, which is clearly a part of the preview of MCCC. But moving on, the report also highlights how the Provincial Arts, Culture and Sport in Community Fund enabled MCCC to invest in significant improvements. Can MCCC tell us more detail on what this funding was able to provide for and the difference it made over the past year?
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that. Yeah, we can. The cultural fund that we were able to access did allow us to make an investment in some areas that we otherwise would have some trouble finding the capital to invest in. So we made some modifications to our concert hall by investing in some equipment, expensive equipment. Soundboards are $250,000. Light boards are $138,000. So those types of investments, this fund allowed us to tackle that. And I would remind Mr. Prashad too that it came with a requirement that MCCC had matching funds as well. So when we made that investment, we had to make sure that our finances were in order as well to be able to support the 50% requirement for that fund. But it allowed us to move in that direction, and we were very thankful for that.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. That's great, having a funding model that can be specific for different programs or different requirements or different investments that are required is definitely valuable. Is there anything that is available to MCCC at the moment that matches what ACSC has provided in the past?
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the moment, no. None that we're aware of. None that we're, I guess that's the best way to put it, none that we're aware of. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Prashad.
We know that the NDP government chose not to move forward on the ACSC funding. Can the minister or the minister's department confirm that our government has no longer a predictable funding program for community arts and culture?
Honorable Minister.
So what I will say is that our government's committed to Manitoba's arts and cultural sector. There's no question about that. We're bringing back stable and predictable funding by restoring the funding that the PCs cut to the MCCC, which was in the amount of $500,000. So our efforts really do go beyond MCCC. Last year, we also announced we provide $13.7 million in funding for the Manitoba Arts Council, nearly 8% increase over the previous year. And we know that this funding really is helping artists, arts and cultural professionals, Indigenous knowledge keepers, and organizations right across the province to really thrive and really enhance the quality of life for all Manitobans. So I know that we're putting in the work, and I just think that, you know, our government and my department really do appreciate the arts and culture sector, and we definitely want to see this sector continue to thrive and to flourish so that all Manitobans can really appreciate the art scene. It really is something that I think a lot of people in our province really hold dear. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Prashad.
Since the ACSC fund was launched, MCCC alone has seen over $330,000 directly. Combined with the resident tenants and companies, the MCCC campus has seen over $3 million in ACSC funding, not to mention organizations like the Jazz Orchestra who use this to fund to show support shows that were held at the concert hall. Now, the NDP government has scrapped the PC's $100 million ACSC program, which directly related to over $3 million to MCCC, and replaced it with $500,000 a year. Is that a sustainable dollar value moving forward to keep you whole?
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Honorable Minister Kennedy.
So what I will say is that the funding for the ACSC, it wasn't scrapped. The program ended. It was announced for 3 years by the previous government. It was shortened to 2, and it ended while we saw the last intake. My predecessor, Minister Simard, saw the last intake. So that ended. We didn't scrap anything. What I will say is we're bringing it back to the fact that our government has provided $500,000 to the MCCC, which is funding that was cut under the previous PC government. This funding is ongoing, and it will continue as a part of the budget that MCCC receives. And I want to reiterate the fact that $13.7 million in funding has actually occurred for the Manitoba Arts Council. So that's another 8% increase, along with the 20% increase of the $500,000. Our government is incredibly committed to the arts sector and the cultural sector, and we recognize the importance that that plays in the lives of Manitobans.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Prashad.
You can call it any way you want. The fact that a program ends, the NDP government chose not to renew or move forward with the same program moving forward, taking millions of dollars away from MCCC. Now, if it hadn't been for the City of Winnipeg stepping up to provide the $2 million shortfall, I think we might be in a different financial situation than we are today. Last year, the Culture Minister in committee said he was talking to the arts and culture sector to understand the particular challenges that exist within that sector and was working to create a sustainable, predictable fund that they can rely on. I would like to find out when that fund will be introduced.
Thank you, Mr. Prashad.
1 second.
Honorable Minister.
So in response to the question / statement from my colleague here, what I will say is with regards to all of the organizations within Manitoba, since I've become minister in the middle of November, I've met with a majority of the folks. So I've toured the Manitoba Theatre Centre. I obviously have met with MCCC. I've went to the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra for a tour and to talk with the folks there. They're the Manitoba Arts Council, Manitoba Film and Music. So I can tell you that what I have been hearing from all of the players within this industry is that they don't want one-time grants, which is what previously was in place. They want stable, predictable funding, which is entirely understandable so that they can continue to provide the wonderful entertainment, and to really highlight the wonderful things that Manitoba has to offer within the arts. And so also with MCCC, that's exactly what we've done. We have increased their funding 20% to $500,000. We're not providing one-time grants so that it can, these are things that are difficult for organizations to plan on and actually do anything with on a year-over-year basis. So yeah, we're really proud of the fact that we've done that. And we've been seeing great things, and I'm sure that this will continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Prashad. Ms. Byram.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you to those that are present here today and for responding to our questions that we've had. Culture, arts, entertainment, that is important to all of us here in Manitoba for our livelihoods and just pure entertainment. I have myself specifically attended some of the venues here in the city. I've even done a little live theater myself, so I do enjoy that. So I can appreciate what the culture and arts provide in terms of entertainment. This is to Mr. Olson. In your point of view, how would you describe the public interest, through the chair, in terms of, our culture is changing, the tastes are changing in terms of entertainment. And I'm just curious to know in considering that, what do you think or feel describes public interest in the arts over the last couple of years? Has the appetite grown? And if you can just expand on how that's sort of evolved.
Thank you, Ms. Byram. Mr. Olson.
Mr. Chair, thank you for that question. I mean, it's not directly related to our annual report, but I've been in this position now for 13 years. So I have seen the evolution of the arts to some degree within our community. And I can tell you it is evolving. There has been changes. If you look back historically, years ago, you would see probably more engagement with some of the classical art organizations and some of the more traditional pieces that they would offer. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the impact that COVID-19 had on the arts organizations in particular, because while there may have been supports in place to sustain these organizations, their livelihood essentially dropped off the table. There was no performances, no public gatherings, so it was very difficult for these organizations to continue operating. But it was also a moment of reflection, from what I can see with these organizations, for them to reimagine what they could deliver to the public that might be more engaging and more attractive. And I think they're all working very, very hard to find that next wave that attracts younger people, new Canadians, Indigenous peoples to their stages. I think they're really working hard. And if you look at the programming of the Manitoba Opera with Liqueur last year, if you look at the work that the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra is doing to try to engage the Indigenous community, and some of the other cultural, Royal Winnipeg Ballet staging their first Canadian production dedicated to the history of the Indigenous people here in Canada. I think they're all trying to reach out and find that new audience. I've been looking at some recent reports that suggesting the classic arts are coming back. And if I may interject just a little bit on a personal matter, it has to do a lot with the way youth engage in social media. And they're finding that if you can convince younger people to attend a classic symphony performance, there's a calming effect in their minds, and their concentration is actually improving. So the arts, although they're a form of entertainment, they are also an integral part in the health of our society. And I believe they are evolving. It's just not that easy to turn a ship around when COVID really does put them in a tough spot, because you want to fall back on traditional delivery, traditional things that were profitable. But they are all evolving. I can tell you, working with each one of them very closely, they are all trying to find that new connection with today's society. So I have a ton of hope that going forward, they will be able to find that engagement. And I think there's nothing but positive results to look forward to in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. We're having good conversations. Thank you for all the points you're making, but a gentle reminder that let's focus more on the theme of the day, which is annual report for MCCC. Ms. Byram.
Thank you. Thank you for expanding on that. I guess the direction I was going was to, see what opportunities there are for expanding what the MCCC offers and how you're going to engage other audiences. So I appreciate your response and sort of expanding on that. Touching again on the past minister last year who promised that a strategy for arts and culture was going to be developed. And that's going back to Hansard. It's been a year since that committee meeting. So one would assume that the strategy must be nearly complete now. I'm just wondering if there's any update and if the minister can expand on what the status is of that strategy and what can Manitobans expect to see in that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Byram. Minister Kennedy.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I think it's just important for me to kind of reiterate the fact that what I've been hearing as minister since being appointed from groups that I have met with is really what they're wanting is stable, predictable, long-term funding. This is something that I think I've heard in probably every meeting that I've had, whether it be with, the Manitoba Art Council. I met with Folklorama the other day. Like, there are a multitude of people that I have met with since becoming minister. And I think what's really important is that it's my responsibility to build these deep connections with these organizations to understand what it is that they're needing and what it is that they're wanting to be able to do the very best job that they can to fulfill their mandates to provide arts and culture experiences to all of Manitoba. And I think what's really important is that we are, as a government, providing stable and predictable ongoing funding. We're steering away from one-time granting that doesn't help organizations in the long run. And so I think it's just, that really is our strategy, is doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Ms. Byram.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. In the report, the fourth pillar of MCCC's new business plan is to communicate the MCCC purpose and capability to a broader audience. My question is, how does MCCC market itself currently? And can we get a breakdown of what that market avenue looks like?
Thank you, Ms. Byram. Mr. Olson.
Mr. Chair, thank you for that question. Ms. Byram, thank you for that question. We do a poor job of marketing our organization, to be honest, and that's why we've made it one of the pillars of our strategic plan, is to elevate our profile a little bit in the community. We are a provincial Crown corporation. Our efforts and our history indicates that we can support arts and culture across the province if asked to do so. Unfortunately, what's happened over the years, and it's just, there's no one person to suggest has influenced this in any way, shape, or form, but we've been somehow narrowed down to the organization that runs the concert hall. And so we've looked at our mandate, our history, and we've said, no. Our organization built the Centennial Centre for the Arts. We built Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre. We built the Western Centennial Auditorium in Brandon, Manitoba. We built the Winnipeg Art Gallery. And so when you go back to that original mandate of where our organization was at a particular time and place, we feel that we are a tool within government to be used to support the arts. And there's probably more that we can do to help achieve the mandate of the Department of Culture by leveraging the fact that we are a Crown corporation, that we can generate revenue, that we can support some of the initiatives that we might propose going forward through some of the revenue opportunities that we might look at as well. Recently we've opened up our own ticketing agency. So we operate much like Ticketmaster does. As a matter of fact, we hired Ticketmaster's old staff when they decided to lay everybody off in the province of Manitoba and centralize to Toronto. We picked their staff up to develop a ticketing agency here. So we'll be ticketing the rodeo in Dauphin, Manitoba this year, the Manitowoc Festival at the Assiniboine Downs, the Morden last Starlight Drive-In Theatre. We provide online ticketing support for them. And of course, we provide all the internal ticketing for the concert hall. But that's the kind of thing that we're looking at going forward. How do we add value to the community by offering these supports to every one of these art organizations? If you want to leverage the fact that we have a ticketing company, you can. And you could probably, if you so choose to, because we're not here to force anybody to do anything, you can probably find some efficiencies if you want to work with us. But is there something more we could do in the PAW? Is there something more we could do in Churchill? I mean, name any other community in the province to leverage the fact that as a Crown corporation, we have that latitude to some extent. So that's what we're trying to do by making our profile a little bit more well-known, that as a Crown corporation, we have that capacity. And we want to push that narrative out there a little bit more forcefully.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Prashad.
Welcome back. Thank you, Honorable Chair. I have to say this committee is probably much better than I thought it would be. The direct answers, the honest responses, it's very enlightening. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of this. MCCC and the Manitoba Métis Federation have agreed to display historical Métis artifacts at the Centennial Centre. This is something that is near and dear to many, many people in Manitoba, and we don't realize what we have either till it's lost or till we go somewhere else and we see what they don't have. Is there other opportunities to collaborate with local organizations to highlight the Manitoba communities, culture, heritage that are going on within the campus?
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Mr. Olson.
Thank you. If I may elaborate on that point specifically, and then I would open the floor to anybody else who wants to sort of expand on that. We, as a Crown Corporation, have committed ourselves to reconciliation, and we make it a prominent feature in the opening comments of every board meeting, that one of our objectives is to acknowledge the harms of the past and to move forward in an era of reconciliation. And one of the things that were brought to our attention about a year ago is the Manitoba Métis Federation reached out. They had certain artifacts, certain displays. I believe these specific displays were at the Winnipeg Airport, and their term had expired, and they were looking for a new home. And we were more than willing to work with them to find a temporary or permanent home for some of these displays and artifacts, and we've made space inside the Centennial Centre, so there's a lower Concord area. But I think, we also work in partnership with with the Manitoba Museum, who we have a close relationship with, and we try to facilitate anything that they might need to tell the story of our First Nations peoples. And so this was just one small gesture of appreciation and reconciliation with the Manitoba Métis Federation to accommodate this request. It's open-ended. They can leave these artifacts under our care for as long as they like, or they can move them to perhaps another building later that they might develop somewhere down the road. But, yeah.
Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. On the topic of collaboration, does the MCCC facilitate sponsorships? And if so, can you provide more of a breakdown on sponsorships?
Mr. Olson.
Mr. Chair, thank you for that. The short answer is yes. We do get a number of requests, if you can imagine, to support various organizations. We try to find a common theme. We try to find a theme that might be centralized around the arts community to provide a little bit more support. But we have, made some I don't know, donations is the right word, but contributions through ticketing, for example. We might provide a couple of tickets to an upcoming event that an organization might be able to leverage at one of their fundraisers. We've recently supported an event at the Manitoba Chamber of Commerce, for example, where they were looking for some table sponsorship. Those types of events, we are selective. We don't do a lot of it, and we try to focus predominantly on requests that might enhance or support the arts to make those types of investments.
Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you for that. I think that any type of collaboration speaks volumes of the organization. You spoke a little bit earlier about Toba tickets, and that's something that caught my attention. And that's thinking outside the box, and I truly respect when somebody's able to think outside the box, take a look at the revenue streams and what's attacking that revenue and the cost of ticket agencies or otherwise. But this is also something that could be a made in Manitoba type of program, which could facilitate every event going on in the province eventually. What is the progress looking like for the last year? I know you touched on a couple of things that was brought up, but is this something that the MCCC would look to develop and keep expanding upon?
Mr. Olson?
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Short answer, yes. We see it as a real opportunity to develop our financial capabilities through the ticketing services. I think you touched on a very valid point. Ticketing is a very expensive proposition for many organizations, and there are a lot of hidden fees within the ticketing agency that in some cases make it cost prohibitive for some organizations to have a formal, secure platform to ticket their events. So our objective in setting this up is a twofold. It initiated out of our own urgent need to establish a ticketing profile to ticket our own events. And then we just realized that we're investing in a Canadian company. The software is from a Canadian company called AudienceView, based out of Toronto. AudienceView services 2,000 venues worldwide, so they're not a small organization. And we looked at the options available to us and we said, can we be an agent using AudienceView's software to develop our own platform and then make that platform available to anybody in the community that may want to leverage ticketing for their event? There are some limitations, and I'll point them out. Folklorama is a difficult one because of the multiple venues all over the place that we've had discussions with. But the rodeo and Dauphin, all we have to do is map out the arena in Dauphin, and we know what kind of ticketing we need to provide to Dauphin. So the community at Dauphin in that particular event is using Toba tickets. And we think there's potential, for other organizations to use. We'd encourage the province of Manitoba to use us as a ticketing platform going forward too, where we can, because we're an internal agency that, you would like to think we might be able to support the province in some of their future initiatives going forward with that platform. But it's a robust platform. There is virtually no event. If we were really aggressive, I'd have sales agents across Western Canada trying to convince people to come to Manitoba or to use this Manitoba-made, Canadian-made ticketing agency. We're trying to place a premium on that, quite frankly, because it is a Canadian software platform. We are obviously a Canadian organization, a made-in-Manitoba organization, and we're trying to emphasize that as opposed to some of the more international ticketing agencies out there.
Mr. Prashad?
Thank you, Mr. Olson, for that answer. You kind of touched a little bit more on the next question that I have. I've been involved in a lot of different organizations, and you're 100% correct that sometimes the agency fees are a tremendous amount of your profits that you're giving away. So when somebody has a very small investment of time and energy and they take that type of consideration from your event, it becomes very cost prohibitive. What steps are being done by MCCC to facilitate the growth of this? You talked if you had the opportunity to have people going across the country. Is MCCC looking at advertising this possibility of ticket sales in a greater detail?
Mr. Olson?
Mr. Chair, again, thank you for that question. I mean, the short answer is yes. There's a cost factor that we have to be cognizant of. So this part of the business is growing organically, word of mouth, as various organizations hear about our capabilities and our abilities. They're inquiring about our service, so it is growing. I failed to mention, but one of the things that I'm quite proud about is that we're providing consulting services, given the expertise that resides in our department, to Curling Canada right now. So Curling Canada has reached out to us and they've asked for support for the Briar. Even though the Briar is not hosted in Manitoba, it's in Thunder Bay this year. Our ticketing manager is providing supplemental support to the Briar right now for ticketing. And who knows, with that kind of engagement, perhaps we'll be ticketing the entire Curling Canada network as well. But again, it's growing organically. As we develop the resources, as we develop the financial ability to do so, we will be looking at things like better marketing, better sales, better attempts to communicate this availability, this product's availability.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Prashad.
Honorable Chair, thank you. Mr. Olson, thank you for that. What role could the Manitoba government play in help promote the use of TOBA tickets? You alluded to the fact that for our events, that perhaps we could use that in here to promote our events. Do you see any other opportunities for the government of Manitoba to help promote this initiative?
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, I think the government, particularly the Department of Culture, they're aware of this, and so we do work on as when and needed basis. I think they've been very encouraging of the establishment. When I say they, excuse me, the department has been very encouraging of this endeavor. You know, I mean, we bring it up if there's an opportunity for us to do an event that might be supported by the province. We'd be happy to take a look at it. I'm not going to commit to our ability to do everything, but there's certainly a lot that we could do, and we're there as a resource. We'd be happy to have those discussions with anybody.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Mr. Olson. I think that this is a great opportunity to grow organically. The more people know about something, the bigger it could become. Now, I want to turn my focus a little bit here to safety. In the 22-23 report, it was mentioned that the increases in vandalism, drug use, homeless encampments at the Arts Center campus has become a rising concern. This year, the report mentions on page 6 some of the steps taken since Manitoba Justice performed a security audit. Can MCCC touch on what the improvements have been made to security over the past year?
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Honorable Minister.
Well, thank you, Honorable Chair. And I thank the member for bringing this important topic up. It is incredibly important with regards to safety in and around the concert hall and other MCCC buildings. We know that when people come to a show, they want to relax and enjoy themselves. They really do. You know, people spend their hard-earned money to be entertained and to enjoy themselves. And I know for myself that when I go to the concert hall, I'm really grateful to the staff. They're incredible. And they work to create a really seamless experience for everyone who attends a show. So certainly our government has been working closely with MCCC to review the security procedures and to invest in additional measures where needed. And a significant portion of our new annual funding is currently assisting with the ongoing physical security upgrades for doors and for cameras. And it's also helping the MCCC hire more security staff and better maintain their security infrastructure for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Minister, for that answer. We know that the Manitoba NDP government is currently looking forward to opening a drug injection site about a 5-minute walking distance from the concert hall. With this added risk to safety, will the minister commit to supporting MCCC in bolstering security?
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. May I just request Mr. Prashad to tie it back to the report, the question you're asking? So if you can, please. Mr. Prashad.
Sorry, so on page 4 of the 22-23 report, it mentions the increase in vandalism, drug use, and homelessness encampments at or near the Arts Center. This, again, will be further drug use very close to the Arts Center and to the campus. So that is directly related to the question.
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Now, I appreciate the members opposite's concern regarding safety, and I want to assure you that it's my priority as well through the chair. But for most of the time that the PC government was in office, they didn't really do anything to increase security at the concert hall and other venues. So I can say we didn't provide any new annual funding that could have been helped to recruit and retrain the staff needed in order to run this world-class operation. And with the $500,000 that we've increased to the MCCC's funding, we're reinvesting in the performance spaces so that every Manitoban who chooses to go and enjoy a show, whether it be music or dance or art in Manitoba, can feel safe and relaxed while they're doing so. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. It was earlier mentioned in this committee that the PC government did invest heavily to get new security, TV cameras and other items out there to bolster security. An answer that you didn't do that in the past doesn't help us move forward. It's unfortunate that we after having such a great committee meeting, we have taken that tone. We are looking at having a potential drug injection site 5 minutes away, which could potentially hamper people's safety in the area. So the question was simply, what is the current government going to do to increase that? And they refused to answer that in something that I'm satisfied with. So I'm going to move over to MCCC. Is there a strategy in place or on the way for protecting guest performers and employees at MCCC?
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Honorable Minister.
So I would like to say that in the very conclusively, as previously stated, our government has provided increased funding, $500 million, which has been used to hire and recruit and retain security staff. It's incredibly important. We're very committed to Manitobans having a safe experience when they are enjoying any of the arts that are available around the MCCC, the campus there. And the money has been used or is going to be used for cameras, for increasing security to ensure that the people who are going to enjoy the area and the shows and the productions there are going to be safe.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I would just like the Minister or the Department to clarify. I just heard $500 million in increased funding. Is that factual?
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Honorable Minister.
My apologies. It would be $500,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for clarifying that. Film production has become a very important part in Manitoba. I have seen it. I actually have had in one of my facilities in Selkirk where they came and rented from me. Just the most amazing group of people, very professional in and out. It's something that as Manitobans we can be very proud that that the film production is got the attention worldwide to develop here. Manitoba has become just a hotspot for film and TV production over the last decade. Looking past the recent writers and actor strike, how much of a demand is the Manitoba Production Center seeing from this sector?
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Burr. So I think people might not be aware that we are engaged in the film and television industry through the management of what was at the time Manitoba's first and only purpose-built film production studio. Since that time, other organizations like Big Sky have come in and renovated the former Nygaard building can't remember the street name, doesn't matter. So there are others that are opening up, and there are other proposals to open up other studios as well too. But what I can say with our established facility and our connections and our discussions with film producers across Canada, mostly from the States, exercising the wonderful tax credit that all of these industries reflect back on or come back to us. All of these producers come back to us and say, listen, you have the best support for the film industry in Canada. We want to come here, and you have the only purpose-built film studio, and so we want to rent it, and we want to utilize it as best as we can. So demand for that space is high. This past summer, we had multiple competing interests for that site, and so it's unfortunate we didn't have more capacity internally to be able to accommodate that. But having said that, the utilization rate has steadily gone up. And so we're very pleased that we're able to provide that space. We have made investment in that space to make sure it meets some of the demands that Hollywood producers and writers might need. High-speed internet capacity to be able to stream services back to LA in live time, investments in the infrastructure itself to make it more habitable for people that want to rent that space. And so there's quite a bit of traction and demand for that space. If I can throw one caveat out there, these wildfires in LA right now might have an impact on the whole film industry going forward this year. And I know that's not reflected in this report. That's just a comment on the side that we've been hearing in the last little while, that production might be a little bit slower this year because of the wildfires. But having said that, in general, in the past, we've had a significant demand for our space, and we've been trying to fill that demand as best as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Honorable Minister.
So I would, as the minister responsible for sport, culture, heritage, and tourism, really want to take the opportunity to thank everyone at the Manitoba Production Centre, because they have really put Manitoba on the map. And they've had an incredibly successful year, and we really are looking for another really great season coming up with film happening in the summertime. And I think that, as minister responsible, one of the first things that I did, the first event that I attended after being appointed, was the ACTRA Awards. And the pride in the room with all of the folks who were there being recognized for their incredible contributions, the actors, and it really was a very special time. The vibe in the room was very electric. People were incredibly proud to be Manitoban and to showcase the work that they have done. And everyone, they were all colleagues in the room, and they were supporting each other and celebrating each other. And I think it just goes to show, that really is Manitoba as a whole. And when everyone's doing well, all boats rise. And that really was the vibe in the room. So I really just want to say, Selkirk is a really great space. It has been a hub. I've heard that from multitude of people since being in this role, that for film and just scene work with regards to location, it really is a hub. And really the growth in the industry is just taken off. I think that anyone that I've met within this sector has repeatedly said the same thing, that Manitoba has really, it's pretty much the envy of folks across Canada in the industry. And I think that essentially what's going to happen is that we're just going to continually raise our profile and have global reach. And I really think that it's really wonderful because the money that's generated by the Manitoba Production Center, it's really just reinvested into Manitoba and Manitoba's artists and the cultural communities through MCCC. So I just really, basically, the last year has just shown that Manitoba is open for business, and everybody knows this.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and I certainly agree with the sentiments that our Honorable Minister has mentioned. We have attracted in the Selkirk area the likes of Woody Harrelson, Kate Beckinsale, Sean Penn, and the list goes on and on and on. These are top quality productions that are being put there, and they're looking at doing this. The previous PC government greatly enhanced the film and tax credit invested in getting direct flights from Los Angeles to and from Winnipeg. The MCCC report mentions on page 18 that the future of the film industry in Manitoba and MPC is encouraging as Manitoba government continues to invest resources in this sector. We know that we need to keep that moving forward. We know that not only the government of the day, but the previous government recognize the importance of the film industry that has here. And we wanted to make sure that we can protect that. I was going to ask about the wildfires, but in conjunction with the wildfires, we're also looking at possibility of tariffs from the U.S. Does MCCC see any fallout from potential tariffs in addition to possibility of lost revenue due to wildfires?
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. I would again gently remind about tying back your question to the report, which is annual report, if you can, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Led to the MPC.
Sorry, Mr. Prashad. I forgot to recognize Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. So according to the report on page 3, the extended writers and actors strike in the U.S. led to the MPC missing budget revenue assumptions by $85,000 for the year. The tieback is, will this have an implication on the budget as well from wildfires and or other consequences such as tariffs?
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister.
So in response to the question from my colleague here, what I will say is that Manitoba is very committed with regards to funding. We have increased the funding to the Manitoba film and music industry by over $450,000, and that will be ongoing funding. And I think that's very important to note. We recognize the incredible talent that we have in Manitoba, and the industry is booming. And of course, we want to ensure that we can continue to support the growth in the industry. So with that being said, with regards to tariffs, I think what's really important to note is, our Premier Canoe, has been a leader with regards to the Team Canada approach with the response to the possible tariffs. He's worked across the provinces with the leaders and across jurisdictions. And I think that really what's important is that, regardless of what occurs, our province will be in a position to respond. And that is because of the incredible work that our Premier is doing. And I really couldn't be more proud of the fact that he has been a leader in this regard across Canada. And I think that it's really important to note that, whatever the issue is with regards to tariffs, if they occur or not, I think our Premier is really well situated to respond to any type of tariffs across jurisdictions and all sectors, not just within film or music. And I think that's really important to note that, we have a really strong leader. We are opening our trade office in Washington, and we'll be situated there to continue to strengthen trade relationships with our U.S. counterparts. And I think that Manitoba is in a really good position to be able to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Prashad.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, members of the committee, CEOs, Mr. Olson, Mr. Goddard, other chair people for being here, directors. The importance of what we did here today is not lost in the paperwork. The fundamentals that were described here, the organization, the structure, the direction moving forward, the people behind the scenes that are not here with us today have such an impact on what we do here as Manitobans moving forward. The ability for tremendous growth in the art sector, to have an opportunity for people to go to places to cleanse themselves, to have better mental health, is very important. To forget about the nuances of the day and to just immerse yourself into the arts and culture. And I think that's a very important part of what goes on behind the scenes. This has been extremely informative. I've got pages and pages and pages of stuff, but it all kind of really comes back to the same thing. Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna leave this here. I want to thank everybody for their attention today and their professionalism, and I look forward to hopefully doing this again in a year from now.
Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Honorable Minister.
Well, I appreciate this being my first committee. Want to thank my colleagues, the Manitoba Centennial Centre Corporation, for their excellent work. And I really want to just take a minute to thank just all the staff who work at MCCC. I think it's really important, whether they work in the box office, they're ushers, security, stagehands, or other roles that support Manitoba's artistic community. I really think that, they're very dedicated, and I think that they deserve to be recognized for their incredible work in keeping the arts seen within Manitoba thriving for years to come. So thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Minister. Seeing no further questions, I will now put the question on the report. Shall the annual report of the Manitoba Centennial Center Corporation for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2024 pass? The report is accordingly passed. The hour being 2:52. What is the will of the committee? Committee rise.